welcome back to the E3 podcast. I'm Melissa Johnson. Today I have my good friend Jenny Dufresne on. I'm so excited to have her here. She is a good friend of mine. She has done some coaching for me and mindset that's been very valuable over time. So Jenny, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe that we get to do this and have fun together. That's my favorite, having fun together. So
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I miss getting to talk to you regular.
I know. The COVID life.
I know. Nobody knows we just spent like 30 minutes before this just chatting. We had a lot to catch up on. So about Jenny, Jenny is the CEO and founder of Leaders Transform, a leadership training platform with the purpose to build better leaders for a better world. Jenny and her team support senior executives and mid-level managers to build great teams, reduce employee turnover, and build vibrant company culture. Jenny's 10-year service as a United States Marine, thank you,
Hoorah,
forms her leadership foundation. As a trailblazing leader, she applied these leadership lessons to found the only all-male public charter elementary school in Washington, D.C., and the only all-male early childhood program in the nation. She is the international best-selling author of the book From Empty to Overflow, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. She also holds a degree from Harvard University and George Mason University. Dang.
Yes.
This is the woman
Excited.
right here.
Excited. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Let us just jump in and let's talk about these 5 radical actions that women leaders need to create happy, harmonious, and joyful lives that you talk about in your book. I think
Absolutely.
That would be great for the listeners to hear about, since there's so many women leaders listening.
Fantastic. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. And I'm grateful, that we can do this and just to connect and synergize, I think is really important. It's particularly important for women leaders. I think you and I and our journey together have had the opportunity to connect and to, I think, in that really elevate ourselves. And so I hope today our conversation will do that for other women leaders and entrepreneurs. So a backdrop to the story in the book. Yes, United States Marine, 10 years. I learned everything I know about leadership. I learned as a Marine, and as a Marine at a time when women were probably less appreciated in the Marine Corps. I think there's been a few changes. Some things are still the same, but there have been some changes. But I took that model of leadership and ultimately founded the first all-male charter elementary school in DC. And I led like a Marine. And so what does that mean? I had been trained to sacrifice. You sacrifice everything in pursuit of the mission. I'd been trained to, push hard, push through, no matter what. That meant if you were sick, you still went to work and you still pushed through. If you were, feeling that you needed a break, you don't do that because you have to be this sort of model of leadership, right? You have to be always present, all of that. And so that's how I led. As I built from the concept to a multi-million-dollar organization, I led like that. I had at one point, at terminal point, we had a little over 65 staff. And so, but that whole way of being, what I realized was it was not really helpful at all. It wasn't helpful to me, first and foremost. It wasn't helpful to what I was building. It wasn't helpful to the people who were joining. It just wasn't helpful. It wasn't productive. And so when I stepped away from that world and had an opportunity to start to reflect on that journey, I realized that there were kind of 5 things that I saw as a woman leader that became really important, but we don't talk about leadership through this lens. And so the first was rest. We're both entrepreneurs. We don't spend the time resting. And I'm even still having to manage myself around getting sufficient rest. And that's sleep, like that S word, sleep. 7 to 8 hours. I know, again, some people are like, well, I don't need that much sleep, but we do need it to allow our brains to, to rejuvenate itself, to figure out, like, okay, the things that I've been thinking, maybe I need to just take a moment and rest. So that was the first kind of radical action, is that we really need to prioritize rest in our lives. And that's not just on Saturday and Sunday when we sleep 14 hours. It's it's 7 nights. So, it's tried to do that the whole time. And then the other thing that I experienced in building this organization and building a company, basically, was I started to prioritize and panic about the things that weren't getting done. And so then I took the time that I would normally have been spending reconnecting with myself or reconnecting with my family, my relationships, my friendships. I started putting that in the more work to do column. So what I discovered over time was that I had sacrificed my friendships. I sacrificed relationship. I sacrificed lots of those kinds of connections that actually kept me really vibrant. And so the kind of second radical action is reconnect. It is absolutely critical for us, especially as entrepreneurs, to make sure we're reconnecting with our friends, with our children, with, we have to create time to do that, right? And none of us, of course, ever want to, we want to spend time getting the thing done, the project done. But reconnecting was really important. Releasing. So that's just releasing the things that we don't need to do. For a long time, I was trying to build this huge organization and then run home and have a perfectly clean house. And my mother said to me one day, why don't you just hire someone to do that? Release that thing that is creating actually stress for me, release it. Let somebody else do it, whatever it is. And that can even be inside a family, right? We have an 11-year-old son. We have a 22-year-old and 11-year-old son. They both, when the older one was here, he had chores. He had to get things done. And so we released those things. To our 11-year-old, he does his own laundry. He does his own ironing. He does his own cooking sometimes. Because just releasing that, right? Releasing that gives him the opportunity to do that. Rejuvenation is always critical. That's fourth? We have to rejuvenate, whether that's journaling. I know we talked about art, doing artwork, taking a spa day, taking a spa afternoon, taking a walk, taking a run, whatever it is that kind of rejuvenates us, allows our brains to settle, is really super important to everything that we're trying to build and do. And then finally is just to refocus. I know, especially in COVID life, I've found as an entrepreneur that my kids at home all the time, my spouse is at home all the time, and I get just it starts feeling like a blizzard of things to get done. And on occasion, I remember I need to sit down and make that list and prioritize the most important things so I can refocus my energy on the most critical things to do for the business, or the most critical things to do for myself or the family. But it's really important to refocus. And so those are the 5 radical actions that I learned along the way.
Those are great. And every one of those, I'm just yep. Because it's so true. And as a leader and a business owner, there are things that we get so caught up, I think, in the day-to-day, and all the you're working hopefully on your business, not in it. Right. But still you're working, and your focus is on that. And we don't always take the time to do those things, to rest, to reconnect, to rejuvenate ourselves, to refocus ourselves. And I think that all of those things are just so important as a whole, to show up as your best self and to be the best leader that you can be. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think so why is it important? And particularly if we're talking to women leaders, to women entrepreneurs, we don't just have one job. And I'm even more connected to that reality. We have multiple jobs. I mean, take COVID. Again, the pandemic has been an instrument, for me, a real clear example of the numbers of jobs that women have. So we have caretaking responsibilities. And some of us may have multiple caretaking responsibilities as a result of the pandemic, just to be like, put this in this context now. So that's a whole set of work. If we're now teachers at home or had been teachers at home in the beginning of this, that's a whole set of work. We have a spouse who may be at home or partners who are at home, that's another set of work. And so we have multiple jobs as women. And I always say that women, we are the engine that really runs everything. And when people are like, oh, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, take a woman. If you go in a city, if we removed all the women from a city, for example, for a day, the city would come to a screeching halt. Just as if a mother gets sick at home and has kids and spouse and business and all that, everything stops unless people have been trained to step up and have been, helping. And so I just think it's critical for us to implement those 5 radical actions because we run everything. So when we don't do it, the reason the book is entitled From Empty to Overflow is that most women, and I've been, and I on occasion still am, that woman who's running on empty. Mm-hmm. And, I'm running on empty when I'm super agitated, when I'm very snappy, when I'm rubbing my head going, this is too much. Like, I don't know, don't talk to me anymore. Like, right. Yep. And so, right. And so it's like, I'm just empty and I have nothing else to give or do. And I need to go and put myself in, either it's take a walk, rejuvenate, reconnect, call a friend, that's not going to drain me, but a friend that's going to kind of fill me up. So those are, again, some of the reasons why I see this as being so critical.
It is important
to our success.
And a lot of us, I think, are pouring from empty cups. And it's sad that we let ourselves get to that point, right? Mm-hmm. Like we do it so often, you try to take care of yourself and then all these things, life is happening. And before you know it, your cup is empty. And like, how did I let it get so empty? Right. I should have been doing these things all along. And then it's almost like you got to hit that bottom to realize, whoa, I need to take better care of myself. I was on a podcast the other day and I was talking about that a little bit about, we were talking about the hustle and grind thing, which I'm always like so anti, like, please stop preaching that. I feel like I say it all the time. People have probably heard it from me. They're sick of hearing about that from me, but there is a better way, and again, like disclaimers is not to say that you don't need to work hard. There are times where you do have to work harder than other times, but if you set everything up the right way, like by delegating, by hiring help when you need it. And that's not just in business, that's at home too.
Yes, absolutely.
Being able to release, through having somebody come help you out cleaning or having a nanny or something like that, which, I always feel kind of weird about before, but then it's like, I can't afford not to do those things.
Right.
And if you are able to take better care of yourself and your business by having somebody else brought in to help you with that, then it's just a benefit at that point.
Absolutely. I think, so women have been groomed to be guilty, to feel guilty. Feel guilty about if your kid is sitting and watching a laptop all day long, which mine is doing right now. Feeling guilty about, and it just is what it is. And I'm at a point now in my life where, the world is not going to fall apart as long as he's not watching something that's really ridiculous. If he's watching something educational, like I'm not going to turn myself inside out to make it different. At the end of the day, life is very long, right? And I'll walk by him and I'm like, hey, go outside. It's not an invitation. It's a directive. Go outside. And I think that we've been, let me actually put the context to this. So I'm newly married. I think we're 3 years into our marriage. And what came with that marriage was 2 children, a 18-year-old at the time and an 8-year-old, and now I'm 22 and 11. Hopefully my math is right. If it's not, that wasn't my,
two kids.
That's right. Two kids,
Two kids.
2 kids and a spouse. And so I very clearly now, and I'm way older, like I'm doing things way out of sequence. So I'm in my 50s, early 50s ish. And so I have all of these new adventures, right? And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's not, look, life is long. I'm not going to spend my time worrying about our kid, our little one being on the laptop all day. I'm just not going to worry about it. And well, why? Why should I sit and expend guilt energy split between I need to be taking care of myself today by doing whatever, if it's going out for a run, if it's sitting and drawing, if it's just taking a breath and doing nothing but being curled up on the couch with a blanket over my head, whatever it is that I need, I need to do that first. But we've been so conditioned to feel guilty about that. And I even have my little one's like, well, you're not going to get Parent of the Year. I said, yay, I don't want Parent of the Year. No problem. So I share that because I think we women, we're natural empaths, we're natural intuitors. We absorb all this energy, and then we're like trying to wrestle with all of that. At the same time, we're trying to figure out, how do I grow and expand my business? Or if I'm a business or entrepreneur, or, how do I go to work and climb the ladder, whatever it is. But I go back to this thing is that it's really like, we have to check our own mind chatter around, you should be, you ought to be, you should be taking care of your kid differently. You ought to be cooking them dinner. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I know for me, like, I'm just like, this is what I cooked. If you don't want to eat it, then you can go eat cereal. I'm not saying that to be, but I'm not saying, I'm saying that because hopefully someone will hear that and it'll resonate and go, oh, maybe I'm spending a whole lot of time and energy and stress and anxiety when I could just say, well, go eat cereal then. Like, it's food.
It's not a big deal. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves about those things. And, I think social media doesn't help in a lot of cases too, because if you're the type of person that looks at that stuff and compares yourself constantly, that's a big problem. As you get older and wiser, you just realize, like, okay, that looks perfect, but it's probably not really that way in real life.
Correct.
And we need to give ourselves more grace, I think, in those moments, I've done the same thing. Like, my son yesterday was probably on his iPad for a couple of hours because I didn't feel well. And I was tired and I needed to rest. And I was in the room with him, but I wasn't engaging with him in that moment. But once I rested up and then I felt a little better, and he was like, can we go outside? Will you go outside and watch me kick the soccer ball? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Because I felt better in that moment, but I took that little bit of time to take care of myself. It's like, you do something you want to do. I need to rest for a little bit. And then, then you've got the energy and the will to do those things.
Correct.
And I think it comes across better to your kids too. And this could go for employees too, I guess.
Anybody. Right. I mean, I think that what I was going to kind of pull the thread here is that yesterday I had to really super focus, and I had to super focus all day long. And normally, because we're all here together, it's a revolving door of asking me random questions about, like, the sunshine and why are the birds tweeting that way, and and I'm like, that's that myth of multitasking, right? Where you start to do something, and if it's an interruption, then your attention's going over there to whatever that is, and you try to get back to what you're doing, and you're like, I don't even know where I was, and that has created, like, me not to be a really nice person sometimes. But yesterday, I think communication. What I was going to pull is that communication and clarity of communication is really important. So yesterday, from my son, I said, look, here's very direct conversation. We were focused eye to eye, no dancing around, focused eye to eye. Listen, today I need a full day of complete focus because I have these 3 projects that I need to get off my plate. So I need you to get everything that you need. Ask me any questions right now. I got 5 minutes, and then I need you to go about the day. And basically, I'm shut down, not available. And what I realized was that direct communication, that clarity of communication, which I think again is really important for our team members as well. gives it stops our brains from having to manage the possibility of some intrusion or a lack of clarity about whatever. And it frees the other person up, because in the case of the situation with my son yesterday, yes, I will play chess with you at the end of the day. And I did. And so he knew in his head when I was coming back, and I knew what the commitment was I made, not randomly like a maybe we can do that, maybe. But I said, yeah, I will do that. If I get this, then I can definitely do that. I think the same thing is with employees. I had a very direct conversation with my employees today around, listen, I need you to master this because I don't want to put my brainwidth towards it. I don't need to. And so my bandwidth. And so I think communication is really important across the board, whether we're talking about our team members. And I think this is a component of leadership and of women's leadership that sometimes gets muted, because direct communication is not something that socially is always acceptable for women to do. But what I see sometimes is that it leaves us still having to attend to other people, because we haven't said, this is what I need, this is what I expect, and this is maybe even what it needs to look like, depending on what it is. And then, are there any questions, right? So I think that's communication is a real important component of all of this.
Oh, for sure. And that, that type of boundary setting, that's a game changer. Once you master that, like that's something that I've learned a lot about the last 2 years, because we don't set boundaries for people. And that's what you did with your son. You set a boundary with him. It's like, this is what I need. This is what I'm doing. And, letting him know like this, I'm available at this time, and doing that with team members, with your kids, spouse, whoever, like that is such a game changer. And I identify exactly with what you're saying, especially with your son, because I just discovered this with my son over the last year, because he's one of those, he's very persistent about stuff.
Yes.
He is like a dog with a bone on anything. And what I've realized too about him is, if you tell him you're going to do something, you have to do it. You can't be wishy-washy about something, or go back later and say, no, buddy, not right now. He's just one of those people, he needs to know what's going on. And what I figured out with him that's really worked well for the interruptions and stuff like that, is by telling him, look, mom's busy. I have, this and this going on. And we have a calendar too, actually, that we have, we started using this DAC board thing. It's amazing. And it's in the kitchen. It's like a command center. And so my schedule is up there. And so rather than them, knocking on my office door, they can see on that schedule, because they can all read,
right.
Mom's busy from this time to this time, don't
right.
go in there. She's doing a podcast, or she's in a meeting or something. But, with him, so he can look at that, but also just telling him, I'm busy from this time to this time, but I will be done. And I just need to rest for just a little bit. And then we will do whatever it is he wants to do at a specific time. So I figured once I started giving him a set time, and in my mind committing, okay, I'm telling this child that we're going to do this at this time, and I'm making a commitment to do that. I'm not going to flake out on him. Even if I'm still tired, we're going to do it, because I've given him my word. And if he honors my space, like I've asked him to, which he does now, when I give him that time limit, he will leave me alone. Now, you better believe that he's sitting there with his thing, and he's
waiting. Right.
It's 3:00. You said it's time. And then I know that I got to just drop what I'm doing, even if I'm not finished, because I made that commitment to him in that time. But he will not bother me up until that point too, which is nice.
And I think this is huge. I mean, we end up talking about children, but I think that the same building blocks and structures are critical to our businesses, our teams. The same thing. Are we communicating effectively to our team members? Are we laying those parameters? Are we time blocking our schedules so that we know that, are we setting that great example as leaders so that people can really focus in and get the things done that need to get accomplished, or solve problems on their own without us, which is always a blessing.
Yes.
Right. So I think that there's the parallels for me is that kind of what goes on and how we run a family, if you will, how we structure our families is completely transferable into business space, because it's communication, it's commitment to our word. So that's trust building, right? And I will say I am not the greatest. So I don't want to ever sit and go, oh yeah, I got all this squared away and straightened out. Like, some things I have to reteach myself as I'm sharing them, right? Because whatever goes on, in our day to day, something that comes in and sideswipes you and you're not expecting it. And then, you have to figure out, well, how do I manage this? But I think it's no different with our teams. It can be sometimes, sometimes we got to put something down and like turn and face that team member who we said we're going to do X, Y, and Z in this particular time period. So we don't push them off, which then sets up this precedence of your word doesn't really matter. You're not, and I think those are real important leadership lessons. And particularly, I think, again, for women leaders, because we have been dissuaded from being direct. We've been dissuaded from being concrete sometimes, because that gets labeled as something terrible. But those are all really important aspects of leadership and being able to build and scale businesses along with that.
Yeah, I agree. And just, I know I've talked a lot about like kids and this kind of stuff, but
Right.
honestly, like I should say that the things that I have been implementing in my home actually started with things I implemented in my business, like
Yes.
that time thing, like telling, the people on the team, like, hey, if my door is closed, I'm in a focus mode. So don't bother me. Like, unless the building's on fire, don't knock on the door. Don't bother me. But they would understand, if the door's shut, like, I'm not fooling around in there. Like, I need to be able to focus. And, if you've got any kind of ADHD or anything like I do, all those little distractions are very difficult to like be distracted and then to like refocus yourself.
Right, to refocus. Yeah.
God,
No, it's real.
so
It's
much
huge.
energy. Yeah. To get it back where you were. So those things, like whether you're a parent or you're an entrepreneur, like those things go together. There's definitely bleed over, between those two, your home life and your personal life, and take the best of what you know about leadership and model that in your home with your family.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, no, it's, and I don't think we don't always, like, we don't have to be different people, right? Between home and work, or work and home, in terms of what we expect and how we do things. Like, I think again, that's a place that I feel like women leaders in particular turn themselves inside out. Like, I've continued to work on, I was trained as a Marine. And so that means that, there was a way I was present in front of people. And then there was a way I was at home. And now I try to make sure that those are better blended. Because it's a lot of bandwidth to try to manage all those different masks, if you will, in all these different places. So something I've tried to continue to work on.
Yeah. And I think, if you're a leader in the office, why not be a leader at home too? Right?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, this has been so valuable. I think the listeners are going to get a lot out of your 5 R's. Because I just realized they all start with R. Yeah.
Try to keep it simple for myself.
Yeah. So to recap, that's to rest, to reconnect, to release, rejuvenate, and refocus. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely critical for people to do, and to be able, I think, in all of that, to create the lives that that we're here to create, and to do all the wonderful things that we dream about doing. And I think that it becomes more and more important to continue to be connected to ourselves, so that the things that we think about, the things that we see and observe, that we can then be able to manifest that externally, and again, create a better world, be a better leader, create a better world, which is part of what we talk about at Leaders Transform.
Awesome. And so if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, check out your book, anything that you've got going on, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of ways. One, if you're on Instagram, I'm at leaders_transform. So Instagram leaders_transform, or you can check out leaderstransform.com, where we have various things from stuff about me to some of the work we're doing. We're in July 17th, we have the Woman Leaders Summit, which is going to be a training summit, if you will, it's a 4-hour training summit to really help women leaders scale their business, grow their businesses. And so you can find out more information about that at leaderstransform.com. I mean, I'll just say, if I may, just one thing about that. I'm a teacher, like I'm a trainer. I like people to walk away with real things. And so one is in this conversation, I hope that, that people can walk away with one thing. Just pick one thing and apply it. If it's even 10 minutes a day, if it's calling a friend, do that one thing, commit to it for 5 days, and then see how you feel after doing it. But I think it's really important. I'm not a fluff person at all. I love a good time and all that, but I think it's important for women leaders in particular to get the tools that are necessary to be able to execute, to make things happen. And so the Women Leaders Summit will be doing that. The book also helps, I think, with that. So definitely, those are two really great places to get connected.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was fun getting to hang out with you again after all this time.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
not wait so long next time.
Yeah, we can't make this. Yeah, we gotta make those times shorter in between.
Yes, for sure. Well, again, I appreciate your time today and sharing all this great information, and
Thanks, Melissa.
I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Sounds great.